Howdy and welcome back. Today, we will be stepping into GameMaker Studio to try to get our movement to be a better setup. We'll have two options. It'll be up to you on which one you want to enjoy. So let's take a look at what our game currently does. If I run towards the edge of our world, I just keep going off of it. The enemies also follow me off of it and they can eventually reach me. But we don't want it to have that option to go off of our world. We want to stay trapped inside the world. So how can we get this achieved? We have a couple of options, but the simplest way would be jumping over into our player object and putting a little bit of code inside. So jumping back over here for our player, if I wanted my game to wrap around the world, so if my player rolls over onto the left side like we saw, and then they pop back in on the right side, let's go inside our step event. And down below, let's see, follow cursor, launch projectiles. Let's add another segment, wrap around movement. So in here, if the player goes to the edge of the world, we want us to have it wrap around. Now we can put a bunch of complex conditional statements to try to address that, capture that, check where the X values are and the Y values, perform the movement. But conveniently, there's a built-in function available in GameMaker Studio. We have move_wrap. We specify that we do want a wrap in the X direction, a wrap in the Y direction, and when we want this wrap to occur. So let's run it without the third parameter. Wait, no. Oh, we do need the third parameter, but I'm going to put 0 for the third parameter. There we go. So with nothing passed in for the third parameter, we will only wrap around the world when it crosses the origin, I believe. There we go. So that's a little early. I kind of wanted to wrap around only after we've gotten the entire thing across, or at least most of it. Because we see half of it pops in on one end, the other half immediately appears, and if we're not careful, we can immediately get attacked, like so. To address this, there's a couple of options you have at your disposal, but one thing you might do is reference your sprite's width, and then I'm going to put a quarter, so I'll need a quarter of my distance from my origin point before it wraps around. That way I don't completely disappear. There should still be another quarter of my sprite visible, but it looks better. So we can get as far as here, and then it pops in on the other side. You can play around with that number, put it at 1/2, put it at, that'll make sure it's entirely gone. You can put it at 1/3, it's a little closer. You'll see a little bit more. Or sorry, you'll see a little less here. Almost the moment it's completely gone, you clearly see it flips into the other side. I prefer this. You can change it up. It is up to you. You would just change the fraction here or change whatever number of pixels if you want to provide a value directly. So this is one way, the wraparound way. But what if I did not want them to wrap around at all? We have another option. Still in our step event, I'm going to comment this line out so it doesn't impact ourselves. If we take a look up above, rather than just specifying y as minus equals or plus equals, I could instead have it set to have a minimum value. Y is equal to a minimum it'll pick the smaller of these two values, y minus 4, or the 0 plus 0 being the origin spot plus our sprite underscore width divided by 2. And close off this parentheses. So now when we're moving up, once we hit the top wall, it'll always be the smaller of these two numbers. This number, as it goes over, or, oh no, my bad. This is max, larger of these two numbers, because otherwise we could fall off the world. With this should actually prevent us from rolling over into outside of our room. So picking the larger of these two numbers, either 0 plus half of our sprite, or whatever y is minus 4, we should be able to trap ourselves like so. Now, this isn't quite perfect. We see we kind of get stopped a little earlier than we'd like. Let's address that rather than plus 1/2. Let's do 1/4. See what this looks like. It depends. Maybe you want that outer border to actually be a blocking wall, and thus you actually can't get past this little step. You can play around with those numbers. There we go. 1/4 is better for my setup. It depends on your sprite, how you've designed it. In my case, 1/4 is the ideal setup to keep me trapped in the world, at least on the top portion. Here, I'm blocked in, but since we still have our move wrap, we can. Oh wait, I commented out the move wrap, so it's not rolling over. Ideally, you don't want both of these, because if you want to trap the player in the world using this format, a max for whenever you do the minus and then a copy the same code, place it down here, but a min, and this rather than being 0 will be room underscore height. Since we're in the y direction, you would use, of course, room underscore width for the x values. We can try this. And with having the +4 or plus 1/4, no, should be minus. Yeah, let me go to the bottom. It'll have to be minus, because otherwise we can technically go a little bit off the screen. We copy this format, the max for this portion, swapping out y for x, and the min for this portion. Oh, make sure you delete that extra semicolon. And swapping out y for x. So going towards the left side, we're going to pick the maximum of these two numbers. Going towards the right side, we're going to use the opposite with the min versus the max. So let's go ahead and test this out. Since again, I commented out the wrap, the world wrap's not going to work. With this specified here, I'm specifying width. If you do not have a circular shape, you should instead swap out one of those to be height. But my sprite is in fact a circle, so this the dimensions are the same for me, but it would be more appropriate for you. Sprite width, this should be sprite height. Actually, no, I have those backwards. This is height. This is height, since we're dealing with the y directions. This would be room width. And now that works out. So you'll either do this update. If you want to be trapped inside the world, you can't roll over. Or if you want to roll over on the edges, you can decide to implement our move wrap. Do only one of these. Otherwise, the wrap's never going to work because you're never going to get far enough in. We can play around with the ideas of maybe having portals, specific spots that you can use to wrap around to the other end, but that'll be a exercise for another time. You can ask me in class for more details on that if you're interested, but I just wanted to give this option since some of you have been asking how to implement one or the other. So again, you can do the wrap, or you can trap yourself inside the world following this format. And make sure you delete these extra semicolons as they should not be there. Otherwise, that's all I've got for y'all today. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know in class. Have a good one.